Restoring a Windows PC with Acronis True Image 2019. In order to change the boot order, I already started up the notebook and pressed escape, which seems to be the right key, which then gave me access to the BIOS, which I could access with F10. Now I have both the backup itself connected as well as the Acronis backup restore media. And now this is the menu it gives me. I already selected the drive and I now just select the most recent backup, which seems to be this one with the date of 2022. Now we click on OK. And that's about it. It doesn't find something. Now it has loaded. It's a little bit later. And now we can double click maybe. And then maybe press enter. I just click again on disk recovery. Select from backup to recover. Well, the one we have now. And then we click on next down here. Click. Now it still shows the same thing. So we click on next. Doesn't do anything. We click on here. The whole program is scaled a little bit weird. Now it loaded, and this was also the case when I tried this with another notebook actually, which didn't work. So now the question is, which partitions do we want to overwrite? So on a hard drive that is on your notebook or a SSD, there are in general different parts. So you could also call them, just different parts on this drive. So the main drive is usually Windows itself. Then we have track 0, which I don't know what it is. The E5 partition, system partition, is basically the newer version of the BIOS. And the recovery partition stores is basically a recovery stick just on the drive itself. Of course, this doesn't get necessarily rid of viruses, but at least it is there. Now, since my backup is exactly from this notebook, it's identical, I just try to overwrite all partitions, which might go wrong, but I still do have another external stick, which I can then use to install Windows 11 again. So now that we have selected all of these, what we do is click on next. And now we have a few different options. We can select the logical drive letters. We can also select the partition size and change the default, apparently. But I just click on next. Now it loads. And this takes usually a while, at least when I tried it before. Now, a few things have loaded, and I again can click on next here. And now the program freezes again. Maybe if I click on here, just for the next step, settings of partitions, but I cannot because it still is frozen. Now at least it seems as if it loads, but it's still... Now it has loaded something. I don't know actually if this is the next screen. We try to click on next again. Next. And now we select target disk for track 0 recovery. Alright. I just try to click on next. Seemingly it worked. We click on next again. Loads. So this is what it does in total. Summary. We click on proceed. My thinking here is simply this. I don't know a lot about all of these partitions, and the automated thing, the pre-selected default thing, is probably something that makes sense already. If I now interfere with me being not that knowledgeable, I probably make it worse. So we click on proceed. And again, nothing happens. To give some context. And it also seemingly started. This here is my normal notebook. I had to send it to repair, and also just in general for the notebook be stolen, for the case that the notebook is stolen, I had this recovery running. Acronis True Image 2019. I tried Windows backup before, but it failed me a few times, so therefore I didn't trust it anymore. Therefore, I now have it back from repair. I did a total factory reset before, and installed Windows a few times even, I think, before. And now, ideally, this would completely restore the settings of all of what was on Windows. Of course, a few account logins may have run out in the meanwhile, and also it might cause problems with OneDrive which is actually something I'm realizing right now just might not make the most sense. The problem is this. OneDrive doesn't really know what to prioritize. What is in the cloud override what is then connected from a new device, or are the files from the new device maybe the newer ones? A good heuristic would be to just take the files that have the most recent changes, basically, and these would be the files usually from the cloud, which I have from the other notebook I am currently working on. So this might cause some problems, but nevertheless, I have never successfully restored a device up until now, and I probably would have to look for another solution, because if this doesn't work, then I do have to have a solution. It usually takes me days, if not weeks, of fully working basically on restoring my notebook to just get all the different settings, all the different accounts logged in, the different programs with their data, and so on and so forth. Every time I make this mistake, I think, oh yeah, it's just a few setup things. And then you do this and this and this, and you realize that you should have stored the settings of a very complicated program before. And so a solution like this would be the ideal solution. It seems to have totally worked. My notebook is now basically the same as it was when I sent it in, or at least when I did the last backup. I could just normally log in, not entirely normally. I did have to use an old password because it didn't have connection to the internet yet, which was confusing because seemingly this would have stored the Wi-Fi details. The problem is only that the Wi-Fi service in our house requires a login via browser, so this might have been the problem. In total, of course, we have to see if there are any things that might turn out to be not as good as they seem they are. Maybe there are some dysfunctions. But just for the sake of getting all of the old settings back, like your wallpaper, like all of the settings in Windows you adjusted over time, maybe over years, and also just all of the different versions of the programs, I think it makes sense to try something like this and to have something like this always ready, because you never know when your notebook will be stolen, or when your notebook doesn't work the next day, or if your notebook has to be sent in for repair and you kind of have to work on a different device.